Your unique story, our global audience. Global One Media.
Welcome to Global One Media's exclusive one-on-one interviews with company executives, sharing insights into their unique journey. I'm your host, Ashley Berry, and we're thrilled you're joining us. Today, Joel Freudman, co-founder, CEO, and director at True Precious Metals, is joining us, a company exploring for gold and copper in the highly prospective central Newfoundland Gold Belt with a mission to build long-term shareholder value through prudent natural resource property development, and transactions. They're listed on the TSXV as TRU, the OTCQB as TRUIF, and the Frankfurt Exchange as 706. Joel, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me here, Ashley.
Absolutely. Perhaps we could start off by you telling us a little bit more about True Precious Metals, its management team, and the unique advantage that separates it from other companies in this space.
I mean, your intro was so good. There's what's left for me to say. True Precious Metals actually did cover kind of the high level. We are located in central Newfoundland. That's on the east coast of Canada, depending where you're watching this from. Very stable jurisdiction, great place to explore. There have been producing mines for gold mines and base metals in the province. And True is very uniquely situated, both geographically and at a corporate level, in terms of how it's different from, a lot of the other junior explorers out there. So if you're into geography or geology, frankly, either one, we're in the right location because our Golden Rose project, which is our flagship asset, is right along a deposit-bearing structural corridor, or in plain English, it's on the best street through the province that has gold deposits on either side of our project. So on one side of our company, of Golden Rose, is a company called Marathon Gold. They're TSX listed. They have 5 million ounces of gold. They're building a mine. They're going to be pouring gold in about a year and a half. They're literally our next door neighbor. So you have a major gold mine right next door to our property. And on the other side of Golden Rose, the company called Matador Mining. They're Australian listed, so they're public also. They have 840,000 ounces of gold. And each of these companies, they don't actually have a single mine or a pit. They have what's been described as a string of pearls. There's a bunch of deposits of varying size and grade up and down this main street. That street continues through True's property for 40 kilometers of strike length. So basically, if you're looking at this string of pearls and you see pearls on either side of True's property, the geological basis we're working on here is there should be pearls that go through our property as well. And we are seeing indicators of that across the property, which I can get into more detail on. But in addition, so projects ideally located, we're literally beside what's going to be a massive gold mine. What's also good, though, on the corporate side is my background as a securities and mergers lawyer. I'm the CEO of the company. I co-founded it about 2.5 years ago. Our president and CFO, she started her career at PricewaterhouseCoopers. Our vice president of exploration, he's worked at the stock exchange. He's worked with Sherritt Corporation. He's worked with majors down to juniors. He's run exploration teams himself. He's been chief geologist overseeing large exploration teams. And so we have a management team that's comes from a strongly professional services background, which I think you don't always see at junior companies this small. So ideally situated project with high prospectivity for gold, as well as base metals, which I'll touch on. And in addition, a very sophisticated management team for a company with a market cap this size. And I think that's ultimately how True is differentiated and very well positioned for what lies ahead of us.
Yeah, well-positioned is exactly what I was going to say. And I think that was a fantastic description of the actual proximity. Really interesting. Perhaps we could dive a little bit deeper. You could give us a brief overview of the specific projects and those key accomplishments on those projects in the last year.
So Golden Rose, we've had it at this point really only for about a year and a half, probably coming up 2 years. We optioned it from another TSX listed company called Altius Minerals. If you're not familiar with them, they're $1 billion TSX company. They're a very sophisticated project generator. So they tend to snap up great projects and then they vend it out to juniors like ourselves. We were lucky to land Golden Rose. I've already mentioned that we've got major gold deposits on either side of us. So that's great from a starting point. We can't just, use a sales pitch based on our neighbors are nice. We have to do some work ourselves to fundamentally advance our project because sitting still is not really an option, especially in a market like this. So over the past year, I'd say we've made major gains on the project level. In early 2021, we released results from a drill program. I'm trying to actually think which drill program it was, but we Early last year, we turned up gold at a known, that was it. We turned up gold at a known gold zone on a property called Woods Lake Gold Zone. So it had already been drilled. We knew there was gold there. We hit gold in the vast majority of our drill holes. So that, to go back to my initial analogy, that's kind of like we got one pearl on the property already that we know of. Later last year, so this would have been 2022, we did a drill program at another target we had firmed up ourselves called Jacobs Pond. No one had really been out there before. We staked the land and optioned and bought land around it. We did drilling and we hit not only some gold, but very interestingly, high grade and medium grade copper and silver, neither of which were known to exist on our property. So we've now made a genuine discovery of other minerals that are on the property, which is great. And copper, as you may or may not know, copper actually is heavily used in things like electric vehicle batteries, solar power. It really plays into the whole electrification of the economy, and it's a critical mineral. So that's a great little add-on that we've got at Golden Rose. Shortly after that, we did an M&A transaction, which really plays into my transactional background. We optioned basically the only remaining puzzle pieces of our property that we didn't own outright. We optioned it from a company that's a neighbor of us. So now we control all the land between Marathon, the 5 million ounce gold mine, and Matador Mining on the other side. The only player between them is now True Precious Metals. We've locked up all the land between them. We later in the year locked up the property we had optioned from Altius. We exercised our option with them about a year and a half early. So again, this is kind of an M&A transactional type of deal with them. We're now 100% owner of the entire property, except for these little blocks that we've optioned from the neighbor, but we have control over the whole property package. And now we're currently setting up to do some field work for this year, as well as additional drilling to try and firm up what we actually only announced this past January, which was high-grade gold on our project. And what's interesting there is you don't tend to see a lot of high-grade gold on this street, on this Cape Ray Valentine Lake Shear Zone. We've turned up some very good numbers in a channel sampling program we did late last year. We just announced the news in January, and you're talking grades 20, 30, 40, 50 grams a ton, in some cases higher. These are bonanza grade numbers, right? You don't tend to see these kind of numbers over 2 to 2.5 meters in channel sampling. So it's not drilling, but it gives you a high degree of confidence that there's something beneath the surface that should be comparable. And so that's really interesting because, again, first tangible high grade gold discovery on our property. It really firms up the potential of this property. And we've drilled a total of 7,000 meters over a year and a half on a 270 square kilometer property. The property is just massive. So we barely scratched the surface of this project. We've already hit gold in drilling. We've discovered high-grade copper and silver in drilling. We've discovered a new high-grade gold zone. This is just the start of the runway.
Fantastic. In the exploration approach, where you say, if you're standing still, you're falling behind. I think that is such a great motto because look at what you've been able to accomplish. Maybe you could walk us through your approach to de-risking your projects and kind of what challenges you're facing and how you deal with them.
The geology in Newfoundland is very complex, as our geologists will tell me all the time. I'm not a geologist by background, but I've learned much more than I ever expected to, or perhaps would have wanted in the last year and a half, 2 years. So it can be challenging to tackle because without getting into all the technical details, some of which are even beyond me, there are a lot of changes in the geology in Newfoundland. There's tectonic plates came together, a whole bunch of stuff, which makes it complicated to discern what you're going to find. For example, that's why we figured, okay, our property is a gold only property. Then we start hitting copper and silver and drilling. No one expected that. I mean, that's a nice surprise. It can work the opposite way too. So that's kind of the challenge is you have to do a lot of homework before you run in and go drilling. It's not as simple as, saying, oh, well, next door there's something, therefore it must appear here, here, and here. That's not that simple. So that does require more time, more effort, more money. Those are the challenges that we face, but many other juniors face those as well. The flip side is, as I've mentioned, you have the potential for upside surprises. And the way we move to de-risk the project with a prudent exploration team and management team is we do internal budgeting every year, exploration as well as corporate level budgeting. We allocate the capital we do have in our treasury to where we think will be the lowest cost, highest bang for the buck targets. So we'll pick areas that have already been drilled or where we've done enough homework. And to be specific, that would be things like soil sampling, magnetic survey, geophysical surveys. In some cases, like this high-grade gold discovery would be channel sampling. We're trying to very systematically de-risk each target we're approaching so that before we go through the cost and effort of putting some drill holes in there to really test what's under the ground, we've done as much preparatory work as possible at incrementally increasing cost brackets so that we're pretty confident before we go drill, we have a high probability of hitting, despite the fact that geology is complicated and you never really know what's under the ground until you drill. So that's really our approach, is move systematically, budget carefully, go for low cost, high value targets and try and expand the property that way. The only other thing, or advance the project, I should say. The only other thing I'll throw in here is this year, we're also planning to spend some money on some grassroots targets. So these are areas where they look really good on the map. They look really good when you consider our neighbors and how the geology looks on our property. No one's been out there. And there's countless areas on our project that look like this where you'd really think something would be there. We haven't had the time or money to do it so far because we focused on the most advanced targets. So we're going to earmark a little bit of capital, very, very nominal amount, to get out to 3 or 4 different zones on the property where we feel have very high discovery potential as well. And there's going to be some guys out in the field collecting rock samples, doing prospecting, mapping, the real nuts and bolts you need to do. But the discovery has to start somewhere. And these are things that cost you very low amount of capital, but could really lead to very interesting upside. And that's really how we approach exploration across all of Golden Rose.
Excellent. Joel, you're on a couple of exchanges. Are there any important updates for Catalyst that investors would be interested in hearing about?
Yeah, I mean, we've already actually started our field program for this year. And Newfoundland tends to be under snow this time of year, but that's not stopping us. We are running a ground mag survey, which in plain English means we're surveying for more gold near the high-grade gold we previously found, as well as a survey like this would pick up base metals. And so there are indicators for things like copper, zinc, lead around this gold area called Marks Pond. So that's pretty interesting. That's something we're already running, and so we would hope to get results of that over the coming weeks. I think that's again a nuts and bolts type exercise. You need to do it. But the larger catalytic events are going to start falling into place over the course of this spring and summer. Once we really get out and can attack the property, I'd say probably you're looking at like April and May is really when the spring season kicks off. The snow is melted, and we have a slew of activities planned at our major targets, which would be Jacobs Pond, the high-grade copper target, Marks Pond, the high-grade gold target, and these grassroots areas, to really get out and do a whole bunch of different types of work, prospecting, soil sampling, more magnetic surveys, to firm up what we would want to be a drill program at some point this summer, targeting our best targets and where we do expect to have hits. That will ultimately be the market mover, but I think that will be kind of the long-term market mover and value driver. But I think in the lead up to those activities, as we roll out a series of results, investors and the general market can look forward to a pretty frequent series of updates from our results, seeing how we're de-risking the project, seeing how targets are coming together, how is the discovery potential materializing. And I think if you look back at our continuous disclosure record, you'll see we like to keep the market apprised of what we're doing. We tend to execute on the plans we set out to the market. Like we like to follow through to show there is execution ability here. And none of that even touches on some of the M&A and financing opportunities we're exploring coming out of PDAC, which themselves are very exciting, but that's, kind of a behind the scenes things that we're always looking into. And so I think there's a lot of catalysts that are going to come over the coming months. And especially as you get into the field season, April, May, and into summer, it's going to start to pick up really excitingly. Plus you've got gold prices going nuts, almost touching $2,000 this week. So I think that's an excellent macro backdrop for us to be operating in.
Exploration to certainly pay attention to here in the coming months. Joel Freudman, co-founder, CEO, and director at True Precious Metals. It was a true pleasure speaking with you today. We thank you for sharing these impressive insights, and we at Global One look forward to sharing updates with our audience.
Thanks, Ashley. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Stay tuned.